I'm co-host James Ash.
And I'm co-host Phil Scaife.
Welcome to the Business Lockdown. On today's show, a very good friend of mine I've known for a number of years now. It must be getting on for like 15 or 16 years now that you and I have known each other, Phil. Phil Grimes, a man of many talents and businesses, wears many hats. He's got a shop fitting business, an ethical asset management business, which I'm very proud to be working on as our marketing team. It's got a Whole Foods business, which we'll talk about as well, which has seen a huge spike under these challenging and uncertain times. So welcome, Mr. Grimes. Welcome, Phil.
Yeah, welcome, Phil.
So where do we start, Phil, on these times that we're experiencing? What have you noticed? How have you adapted within your businesses since the lockdowns and the social distancing and isolation as it is?
Well, I think when it first hit, we kind of did take a step back and just had to kind of rethink how to go on, actually sort of step back and just take it all in, and really decide how we kind of approach things again. With the shop fitting side, it was a bit difficult because we're midway through a project on a site in Lincoln. We were just nicely getting going on site, quite a big Asian supermarket, and we were just nicely about a third of the way into the job, and it became apparent that it wasn't really appropriate to be sending guys to site and doing all that traveling and social not distancing and things like that. So until we knew how things looked, we basically pulled off that site. I mean, I did leave one guy decorating, things like that, one solitary a little bit, but we've just bit by bit had to close the site down. So that job's hanging there really until we feel we can sort of safely carry on with it. I know legally you can, but we had to take an ethical view really, or a personal view about whether it was right to send guys there. So the shop fitting side has kind of slowed down. However, that has developed a little bit with the screens side of it, which has come along. I kind of literally had a week just at home, obviously looking after kids, because my other half's Whole Food shop, by the way, careful. Not mine, but I do support her with it. So she's been busy with that, as we'll come to, and I've been doing most of the childcare stuff and trying to just keep an eye on business. But I literally took a week of just sitting back and just recalibrating, really.
You mentioned screens, Phil.
Yeah, so a week or two ago, I noticed a shop fitter that I know in Leeds very well, Lee from JRS. He put a post on Facebook saying that he'd fitted his first COVID screen, his first coronavirus screen. Now, actually, what he'd done was fitted a security screen in an off license that was getting a lot of kids jumping over the counter and pinching the cigs. So he fitted a security screen, and for a laugh, but my first coronavirus screen, well, from that, he got about 8 inquiries for coronavirus screens. So he's been busy going around Leeds fitting these screens, just acrylic screens in convenience stores, off licenses, post offices. And this was before the bigger supermarkets started doing that. And it was Kate's shop, really, the health food shop, Grain Whole Food. She was getting more and more concerned about still being open and still having customers stood at the counter really close, talking to them, and not really standing back at the 2 meter mark and things like that. And so we decided to have a go at one of these screens for Grain, which worked really well. And yeah, then off the back of that, I kind of had a bit of a wrangle. Do I really want to be putting myself out there and traveling about, selling screens as such? But actually, it's keeping shopkeepers safe and keeping customers safe as well. And thinking about, well, do I just let my business stagnate, or do I use this to A, help the business a bit, but B, help people a bit? So I took the decision to do a few screens on my own, not sending the guys out. I'm fitting them personally, fitting them out of hours when there's no other customers there, and just keeping as safe as possible. And yeah, so I've done quite a few of those up to now, and hopefully do a few more for people while it's still relevant.
It's no surprise that it was very quickly you were having to do something. I mean, Phil is, when I speak with Phil, he's either up at 3 a.m. driving to Essex on a job, or pricing up something that's at like at the top of Scotland or something and that, and you're so busy and active and spinning many plates with your businesses, and really, so I know it's so important for you to be to providing work and support for your team under normal circumstances, let alone these. So when we had a chat, and you just made that decision to come away from work, and it was almost like you didn't know what to do with yourself, because all of us, probably for the first time in, ever maybe, that you just haven't been wheeling and dealing or running businesses or making sure somebody's all right, a team member, you know, Katie's shop, you know. So, and I remember sitting with you when you just didn't really know what to do with yourself. You're like in this position. And how was that? How was it? You want to share with our audience that transition of actually making a decision to stop in the best way that you did?
Yeah, well, I think it felt like the right thing to do. And say the guys didn't really feel comfortable about going out. And we had that mixed messages from the government right at the beginning about whether it was key workers that had to work or whether it was people who couldn't travel to work that had to work. So we made that decision. And to be honest, it felt good. And I was talking to Danny, my partner, obviously in Resolve, and he was of the same mindset of like, look, let's just stop it, do the right thing, and just take a breather. And it felt exciting in a way to have that reason to stop and have time with the kids, time to reflect. And I was quite excited about it, really. It was like, right, we really have got the gift of time now, and we can really do something with this. And, you know, I bought gallons of paint while I was buying paint for the site and thought I could paint the whole house while this is happening. Brilliant. And all that 12 years worth of gardening to catch up on and stuff like that. But yeah, quite soon my time seems to have been filled up, really. Which is,
it also helps when your business partner runs bars and he's giving you a shout that he's got a keg or two with lines for you.
Yeah, I need some beer drinking up. Can you help me? So, and the other thing is, of course, Kate's shop has got busy, grain, and we've offered free deliveries to people that are isolating quite early on, so that people weren't having to come into the shop. And because she's flat out really taking orders and running the shop, I offered to do the delivery. So again, I'm heading into Hull at 5 o'clock every day and filling my estate car up with deliveries and driving around the area, dropping boxes of food off. So that already disrupted my pure isolation kind of tactic anyway, really. I'm not stuck in the house because I've got to go and do essential food deliveries. So I'm out and about doing that. The COVID thing, the screens, I just thought, well, it makes sense. And again, I'll do it out of hours and work around childcare and the food deliveries. And yeah, it feels good that you can try and do something just to somehow keep a bit of life going in the business rather than sit back and hope that, you know, there's some kind of government support, which isn't really very easy to get. I don't think. I'm not holding out much hope. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm still managing, luckily, to spend time at home. I was helping, you know, my youngest with schoolwork. My oldest is self-sufficient, helping herself with schoolwork. But we were doing schooling and Joe Wicks and then doing nice things in the afternoon. It's Easter now, so we've got holidays. But so I'm getting that time. But yeah, trying to keep an eye on. I am having a wrangle about how much business to do and whether I should be trying to push on with it or just completely shut it down and furlough everyone. It's not straightforward in that industry, really, because some, you know, shops are busy, food shops need support. People are asking me for fridges because they need things to put food in. But then am I just stumbling along and making people come to work when actually we should just take a few weeks out? I don't know. It's complicated. It's not straightforward.
And you mentioned there about fridges, helping people supply and install fridges. You did some work for Hull for Heroes? Is that right?
We did, yeah, with Resolve, we Hull for Heroes had put a shout out that they wanted a fridge and a freezer, some capacity to look after chilled food. They're a charity that's set up to take food by the look. I don't know too much about them, but from the outside, I think they've set up to be able to take food in and deliver food parcels to veterans and also key workers that are struggling to get food, things like that. So they've got a warehouse in Hull. They seem to be taking in, a bit like FareShare, I think. They seem to be getting a share of spare food and doling it out to people in need. So I went yesterday and delivered one of our big chest freezers and a big chiller and put that in their factory for them so they could they could do a bit more with that, which was nice to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. What's keeping you awake at night, if anything, at the moment? What's the thing that springs to mind, Phil?
Changing routine, really, because I literally am being kept awake at night. I think a lot of people are saying they're waking up at 2, 3, 5 o'clock. And I think it's just, are you expending less energy during the day? Are you just worrying more about stuff? Is it just the change of routine? It's just peculiar. I don't know, really. I'm worrying about the jobs, and it's hard to picture how the cash flows are going to work, because you don't know when things are going to end. So you can't work out properly, project finances. I mean, I've looked at the government loan thing, but that, from every report I've heard on every radio interview, it sounds like a nightmare to apply for, get a very slow response, and then have to jump through loads of hoops. Prove your business is viable. It'll be creditworthiness. There'll be the whole worries about applying for any kind of bank loan, and a very protracted procedure, which I'm not fancying. So ideally, I should be furloughing the guys, getting a big loan in, and then deal with that later. But I'm not convinced the loan's going to be easy to get, and I'm not convinced how quickly the furlough money's coming through. So that kind of thing, I suppose, keeps you awake at night. I've got clients saying, when are you starting my shop fit? Because I've got a deposit for another shop fit over in West Drayton that he was expecting to have started at the beginning of April. And I'm having to say, well, can't really do it yet. He's also not closing his store, so we're trying to work around customers. Can't do it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I've got work. I've got a lot of work waiting in the wings, and dilemmas about how to approach it, really, I suppose.
And that can change every day as well, of course, which it is. It's like when you start to go towards one decision, right? Yeah, I'm definitely taking that route, and then all of a sudden, the informational restrictions and the environment is changing around us. Phil, I'll ask you the same question. What's keeping you awake at night, if anything, at the moment?
It's probably work-life balance, I think. Mm-hmm. I slightly different to Phil. I have, in the main business that couldn't continue, the salons, we have had to close, and we had that decision taken out of our hands, which I suppose is the difference. When you've got choice, you've got obviously you've got the moral side and the financial side and the cash flow. So you've got many different things. We had that taken out of our hands, and so that was closed, and all staff furloughed. And so that then gives you a certain element of clarity. But the struggle for me personally is really just trying to run the businesses that are still running, whilst at the same time being a dad, a partner, a teacher, all these different roles all of a sudden that have come into the house. And it's trying to strike that balance. And I think I've said it before, it's kind of, I think half the world has all of a sudden got a lot of time on their hands, and the other half of the world has all of a sudden just lost all time that was available before. And so yeah, I think that's the stress point here. Phil, do you think, does your business model, do you think it'll be the same at the other side of this, whenever that might happen, or have you learned anything or adapted in any way which you think it will be more a permanent change now?
I can't see that the shop fitting side will have a big difference, really. I'm kind of hoping that we'll be in a good place marketplace wise, because a lot of convenience stores, which is the type of store we mainly fit, are having a very good time of it. Takings wise at the moment, they're all doing like a Christmas Saturday takings every day. A lot of them, not all of them. Some are in an area where there's student area and there's nobody there, but quite a lot of them are doing very well. So I'm hoping that they will have budget to improve their store when they come out the other side. I mean, we've just done, luckily for Ellerton News, we just did Ellerton News before Christmas, and I pushed that one through because we wanted to get the job in before Christmas, and he went for it. We did a full refit, bigger capacity of chillers, bigger capacity of freezers, fresh new store. And he's so glad that he did that now. I put a COVID screen in there yesterday, and he said it's just crazy. He's just literally doing Christmas Eve takings every day. One day, a week's worth of alcohol sales in a day, which is a bit of a worry. But people are obviously taking...
I think we can all empathise with that.
Yeah. So yeah, he luckily put his shop in the right place before all this happened, and he's reaping the benefit. I'm hoping that the marketplace will be good afterwards, because people will feel they've had a good run and they've got some money to spend. So yeah, I can't see a major difference. There may be subtle things that I've missed, or subtle things to do with bigger chains, or ways things will change. I'm not sure, but it's a funny little niche that we work in, really.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see how consumer patterns change, because you know, is there now a stronger loyalty to that local shop that was getting overlooked, either due to price point or selection, and now we've all realised we don't need 30 different variations of toilet roll. We just need a toilet roll, you know. And so the corner shop, I think, becomes the connection, the relationship that we've got with those retail spaces, I think is probably stronger now.
Yeah, definitely. I think they were starting to slip and having to really fight for their corner until this happened, and I think they will gain a lot of kudos from it and a lot of benefit and respect, and you know, hopefully not everyone will turn straight back to the big supermarkets. The other thing I think about is the only thing that I do worry about, because I do love supporting local shops, and it does great on me how online shopping becomes the default setting for everyone now. And I do worry that this is really training people to do online shopping and training people away from using independent shops, especially, I suppose, independent shops that have had to close because they're not key. They're the ones that might struggle, because the people are getting trained away from it, and people who hadn't engaged with online might have engaged with online a bit more now, and be overlooking the little independent shops a bit more.
Yeah.
So that might be a sad thing. I mean, it's funny about the health food shop. When this started unfolding, Kate was like, well, that's it now. I'm going to be closed. There's been nobody on the streets. You know, it's over. And it completely took her by surprise and went the other way. And actually, everyone wanted immunity boosting foods and healthy foods and supplements. And actually, whereas it has been under siege and under attack from the supermarkets, they're all getting the free from aisles. They're all starting to get a lot of similar products. They've got the buying power to do it cheaper. It was kind of eroding that business to some effect, although Kate was building other sides of it and put a kitchen in, doing fresh food, a lot of vegan lines, a lot of specialist lines that the supermarkets can't adapt to quickly. It's holding its own, but your basic lines were all just getting taken over by the supermarkets. But what's happened now, I think, is the supermarkets have just, again, like they couldn't keep up with toilet roll, etc. They're probably struggling to keep up with all the health lines, and they haven't got the expertise and the links to get them. So I think they've probably quite quickly fallen by the wayside, and the health food shop, again, it's come into its own.
Yeah.
So there is a benefit.
Also, I'm aware that, for example, like your non-mainstream milks, for example, when you've got the allergies and things, and you have the particular types, as soon as the main section of milk got overbought and people stockpiled, then they had to move to the fringes. And so anyone that was relying on a supermarket for like gluten-free or free from this, from that, all of a sudden they've lost that trust in that part of the supply chain. So hence why I would guess the independent version, which is only ever frequented by people who really need those products, you build extra trust there, I guess.
Yeah, and especially, I guess, if it's an actual allergy and you really need it, then you'd be upset, wouldn't you? I mean, It's funny, I think Kate was almost thinking, oh, great, I can actually have a rest now. It's going to... One of the girls that worked there went to Australia before Christmas, so Kate's took up a lot of the slack recently. And I think she was almost thinking, oh, well, at least I'll be able to spend some time in the garden with the kids. It's completely gone the other way. She's having to go in early, take phone orders from 8:30, work late, picking the orders. It's really has, the workload's increased massively, and it's me that's at home in the sunshine with the kids.
We'll keep that between us.
Yeah. She won't watch this far. She'll never know.
Well, Phil, tell us, take us back a few years. We've had many wonderful conversations about life and business over the years, and one thing that stood out from a conversation was that you used to live in Brighton and used to be like a wheeler and dealer, and used to be picking things up for auctions or selling at auctions, and used to remember there was a moment where you'd have like a certain amount of, you've made a certain amount of money from a few sales, and you would feel like a millionaire. I remember you saying that you would feel like a millionaire, and how funny it is that your natural path of then building a business and then having a team and a warehouse and all of this stock, that you would think that it brings all of these riches and stuff. Whereas actually, this conversation that sometimes you wish you could go back to the start, because that feeling of feeling like a millionaire without all of those external pressures, and give us a bit of insight into your journey and some of those moments.
Yeah, well, I'll try and do it in a nutshell because it's quite a long and windy path. Going right back to when I was at school, and me and my friend Colin Anderson got hold of a load of pens that his dad got from work, and we sold them on the backing that it made the same noise as the Kings of the Wild Frontier by Adam and the Ants when he went. We had a good trade in pens when we were at school. That started it, I think. And then I've always worked, really. I had paper rounds from being young and getting up at 6 a.m. doing paper rounds. It was nice to have a few quid in your pocket when you were at school. So that was, I've always not shied from cracking on with stuff, I suppose. Left school, left sixth form. Thought I'd go to university, but have a year out first. Me and a friend, Tim, did a bit of work, earned some money, then went to America. Bought an old Pontiac 77 Le Mans and drove right around America for 3 months. And then came back from that. We had businesses over there. I even set up a lawn round when I was staying in Texas and borrowed someone's lawnmower and went cutting lawns. English Country Gardens, it was called. Did
you put on a really well-spoken voice as well, just to accompany it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so I don't know how I did that. That was before mobile phones, so I was only like 18. Yeah, so I did America, came back, thought, why do I want to go to university? We can run our own businesses. Got the enterprise allowance, 50 quid a week, set up a delivery business, bought an old van, did it up, me and Tim, set up a delivery business, started actually going to Bateson's auction and offering to deliver the stuff to people's houses that they'd bought or back to their factories. And I think that's what maybe caught my eye about auctions early on. Yeah, I did that for a bit. That built into a courier business. We had 2 or 3 vans and we were doing courier work, mainly doing most of the driving ourselves, getting up at 3 a.m, driving to Glasgow and back every day, things like that. So that was quite tiring. Did put my miles in back then. And then that kind of fell over. I think somebody crashed the best van and we thought, do we really want to be driving thousands of miles a week? I'm a bit bored of this now. I decided to go to London, seek my fortune and be a motorbike courier. That was the next thing. But meanwhile, Chris Hodgson, who ran Pools Corner in Hull, said, will you come and manage my shop? Because he knew I was a bit of a wheeler dealer. I was about 21 by now. And we used to live next door on Ella Street in our little Hull party house. And I said, I do fancy the job. It was like a second-hand shop, Pools Corner, and a bit of a pawnbroker, and bought and sold second-hand goods. Thought it sounded quite fun, but I wanted to go to London. I'd made my mind up. So me and my friend Matthew Conman, we jumped on my motorbike, went down to London, got jobs in London, surfed, and lived the London lifestyle for 6 months, which was great. And then I came back and took the Pools Corner job. So I managed Pools Corner for 2 or 3 years, cut my teeth in over-the-counter wheeling and dealing. And the best thing was Chris used to send me off to auctions with a blank check signed and go just buy a load of stock, which was great fun. Heading away, coming back with a van full of gear. I loved that. So yeah, and dealing with customers over the counter, selling their goods for them, buying stuff. So that was a good grounding, I suppose. But I kind of thought after a bit, do I really want to be stuck between these 4 walls? Serving over a counter, it was starting to get a bit claustrophobic, and I just felt I needed to be free again. And I realized I could probably go to an auction and earn my week's wages by just going to an auction for a day and selling the stuff. So I decided to let him down and leave, and set up Kingston Surplus Trading Company, which was me with an old Peugeot pickup wheeling and dealing really around, which then evolved into looking after a lot of the student landlords in Hull. So I was buying a lot of furniture, I suppose, and selling it to student landlords. I had a little yard on Grafton Street and would buy and sell stuff and gather a lot of stuff for the landlords, sell things into that. And a bit of property maintenance, had a few people doing cleaning up and things for me. Yeah, then what happened? Then I realised that actually buying and selling commercial stuff was better than domestic stuff. Everyone bought and sold second-hand washing machines and things. Commercial stuff was interesting because when someone closed a shop, it tended to go in a skip and be cleared in a rush. And then it seemed a bit of a waste, really. And I knew a guy who used to go to the shop itself and clear them when they were redoing a Comet or a Halfords or something. Do you fancy coming along with a van and giving us a few quid for this gear? Tried that, went along with a few trucks, cleared all the shelving, realised that actually shelving and counters are really expensive when you need to buy a new one, and when they're getting rid of them, they tend to just be waste. So that's when I started dealing more in shop fittings. That's how that came about, and set up a little We Buy and Sell Shop Fittings leafleted Hull, and became the person that you went and bought a couple of bays of shelving off. This was back in the 90s. And that kind of developed bit by bit, really. Then fridges came along, and fridges are really expensive if you want one of them for a shop, like £4,000, and yet someone wants 100 quid from off the back of a truck. So that became quite exciting. The margins were tantalizing for that kind of thing. So that was it, really. That was me buying and selling shop fittings rather than everything else, because commercial stuff has that value, and generally it's just wasted. And then that evolved in will you come and measure up how many bays of shelving I need? Where would you put it? And then before I knew it, I was having to design the shops for them. And then, can you put it up for me? We're having to put the shelving in the shops. And over a period of time, here we are, mainly fitting new shops with a bit of second-hand equipment as a bit of a bonus and a bit of a budget saver and a bit of a environmental, let's reuse a bit of equipment where we can.
And I know we've touched on Hull for Heroes, the recent work you've done, and you've done amazing work there, which I know is no surprise because you do a lot of that. But, a couple of examples I'm aware is the Warren Youth project that you guys worked on and fitted a kitchen there. Do you want to give us a quick bit of insight into that?
Yeah, so that's with Resolve Ethical Asset Management, which honestly, in a nutshell this time, Dan has been saying for years, Dan Robinson, who has the bars, Larkins, etc. He's been saying for years we should do a proper asset management business where we properly do strip outs of stuff and manage that equipment ourselves, because we're both dealers, we've both dealt in catering equipment and things. It's close to our hearts, and we see a lot of waste and a lot of people it just going down the wrong route when these things happen. So anyway, Dan and I set up Resolve Asset Management a year or two ago, and Dan's a trustee of the Warren. So when the Warren needed to reset out their food offer, really, for the youths that go there, Dan jumped at the opportunity of us being able to help out with that. So we just cleared a redundant kitchen in the crossings in Hull, and we decided to repurpose a third of that equipment, a quarter of that equipment, by just donating it to the Warren and having our guys reset out their counter and refit it into the Warren and redecorate the kitchen for them, put a bit of kitchen equipment in, put a counter in, and just give it a bit of a refresh as a gift, really, to the Warren to help with all the brilliant work they do. So it was a nice thing to do, and it was a nice job in the end. It was a nice exercise.
And the impact, I remember Dan saying that sometimes that's maybe the only main kind of nutritional meal those kids are having in the day, and the positive impact that's having on their education is phenomenal. So, and that's just like a couple of examples that you guys are committed at making a difference when you've got these not only resources but connections and such a vast network that it's you wouldn't imagine not doing that. I know who you are. It's almost like you just can't envisage not taking advantage of that and helping people, because it feels amazing, right? So Well, I mean, we're going to have to wrap up, Phil. We could talk forever. But one thing I'm curious, one piece of advice that you could offer our audience, and it could be to do with anything, as a father, as a business owner, absolutely anything. What one piece of advice under these current circumstances we find ourselves in, this climate with COVID-19? What's something that you could offer as a piece of advice to help people?
I guess especially relevant to this current situation is just don't be afraid to take that time to just rethink, reset yourself, meditate, whatever, and just have a bit of time out to step back and readjust. I think it's funny that you said this is probably the only time I've ever stopped and rethought things. The only other time was when I had a mountain biking accident. And at the time, my business was really busy. I had several staff. This was back in, shop fitting 20 years ago. And I was just literally on fire, rushing around all the time. I thought the world had stopped turning if I didn't keep my eye on it. And mountain biking accident, snapped my leg, had to have metal plates in it. And I was in Hull Royal for 3 or 4 weeks. And, that taught me such a lesson about the world still does go on if you just step back for a minute. And it was so valuable in having that little bit of time to sit back and look at what you're doing and rethink it all, and then be able to come back to it with a fresh approach. So I suppose, if anything, that's the kind of benefit, I think, and the advice you'd want to be looking at.
Well, I'm pleased you mentioned biking, because I was really wanting to just tell a brief story before we wrapped up, and I was thinking, how am I going to get it in there? And it's to do with your recent birthday. So Phil celebrated a very important birthday recently. 30th recently, and rented out this field with a big top and a proper bar and reclaimed things in it. It was like a vintage 1950s, 60s caravan that was had poetry in that people were reading, with a big urn that was making teas. And it was, if you're gonna have a birthday party, that's the way to do it. I was very fortunate to DJ, and we had Bri, who was the other DJ, and Fortune daughter, she sang as well for you. It was incredible. And we all camped over, and we woke up the next day kind of feeling a little worse for wear, as you would expect. And then Dan had created this sculpture out of oil drums, and it had the numbers 30 to represent the birthday that you were celebrating, of course, yes. So this big sculpture out of oil drums at the bottom, and I was just like, we need to create a ramp. Do you know that child in you, when it's somebody else's birthday and you want to cause a bit of mischief and mayhem? And our friend Neil and I were like, yeah, we're going to make a ramp. So we're looking for something that we could create a ramp through the zero, because Phil was, of course, gonna. There was this weird little bicycle that was on site, and we're like, yeah, because Phil's going to go through it. If we set it up right, he's going to do it. Inside thinking, he'll never do that. I wouldn't do that. But just with belief that, Phil, yeah, we're going to make a ramp for you. And I think it was this big tabletop. No, it was a door. It was an old door that we found, and put it ramped up to this big zero. And and he was just like, yeah, all right then. And we're thinking, no, he's not going to do it. And he kind of took one look at it, went away, and everybody who was remaining on the site were there, all videoing, and up he biked and went through it and landed it through the zero. Puts his arm in the air, throws the bike down, pulls a firework out of his pocket and lights it, and he's like, yay!
That's exactly what you pull off the next morning.
Yeah, one of many happy memories with you, Bill. So, yeah, it's a pleasure rubbing your shoulders in business as a supplier of mine over the years, and working alongside you in business, and but more importantly as a firm friend. So it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks very much for joining us, Phil.
Yeah, thanks
for your guys' help as well with everything.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Lockdown.
Please comment, share and subscribe to help build our global community.
We look forward to seeing you all soon.